This video is especially for female believers, but all believers are welcome to listen to this. I made videos about feminine power. Please watch that series. If needed, I'll put the whole series in one video of about maybe an hour or an hour and a half, and I'll upload it again. I'll upload all the videos in one file and upload them to YouTube if that's necessary. In this video here, I want to warn you for the following. When a female refuses to face her father issues, when she refuses to seek deliverance and recovery, what do you have to do then? You leave. Just like Lot was ordered to leave Sodom, you leave. You simply leave. I'm not telling you to just cut someone off out of the blue. Just make sure you leave that relationship or that friendship or that contact as soon as possible. Remember, I make this video especially for female believers. So this is not a video to console men who have been abused by narcissistic females, even though abused men who listen to this video can also learn from it. Look, believers, especially female believers that are listening to this. Any female who has father issues or daddy issues or a father complex, whatever term you prefer to use, I'm going to use daddy issues now. Any female with daddy issues is a female that needs deliverance. She needs inner healing. As long as she's not healed, she'll only have coping mechanisms. And those coping mechanisms will make her narcissistic over time. She doesn't have to be a narcissist directly. She doesn't have to be malignant, but she will become narcissistic. She'll become codependent and overly focused on herself. Over time, she'll become dysfunctional. She'll become defective in how she relates to others. When it has come so far, there are two options she has. Face her defects and dysfunction, which can be scary, but she needs to face it. And by facing it, now the door is open for deliverance, recovery, and for improvement of her life. Or she remains in denial and she turns into a full-blown narcissist with malignant tendencies. It's one of the two. So when you notice that a female does not want to face her daddy issues, just leave. If you are attending church, some of you are still going to church. If you're attending church, you are a female believer, and there's another woman over there who claims to follow Christ, but she is quite controlling, especially towards men, and she doesn't want to face it. She is an open door for the Jezebel spirit to work through her. So do not trust that individual. If you have a relative, maybe a female cousin or a niece, and she likes to come to your home, but she doesn't want to face her defective thinking, then begin to deter her from coming to your place. Do not share any sensitive information concerning yourself and those around you with a female that doesn't seek healing from their father issues. Just don't do it. Here's why. First of all, females are emotionally wired. That's how God designed them. That's how females are. They are emotionally wired. There's nothing wrong with that. It's God's design. However, in a fallen state, the emotionality of a female can become toxic and sometimes even fatal. That's the way it is in this fallen world. So when you're dealing with a woman that's not born again, I'm not talking about little girls. I'm not talking about children. I'm not even talking about women. I'm not even talking about females in their early teens. Okay, I'm talking about females in their late teens and in their early 20s. So adults. So or people in their adolescent years and older. When you're dealing with a woman without Christ, she is a bit narcissistic automatically. Why? Because she doesn't have Christ. She only has her emotionality and the sexual interest of men that she can use to her advantage. Because let's be frank, even though you have feminism that proclaims that women have improved on the workplace and in the economy or whatever, still women are often primarily valued for sexuality, for sexual intercourse, and for, well, the use of their feminine qualities as empathy, emotionality, and the like. Straight up. So that's how the world is formed. So a woman without Christ in this world, who's surrounded by devil worshippers, who hate females, the main two things a female has is her emotionality and her youthfulness, in which she is perceived as a sexual prize by men. So women without Christ have narcissistic tendencies automatically. Because they're in a fallen state, they don't have the Lord. So such a creature will always seek validation from society. She will always fall for what society offers her. Even if she sees that what society is offering her doesn't add up, she is a being who is designed to be cherished. And if society cherishes her in exchange for her soul, she'll do it. That's a worldly woman. A female, a woman that's born again, needs to be renewed in her mind. Now, not all worldly women have daddy issues. No, not all of them. But all worldly women do have narcissistic tendencies, because they're still operating in a fallen state. So that's why female believers need to be renewed in their mind. And there's one thing female believers need to do, and that's avoiding other women who don't want solutions. Straight up. There are even worldly women without Christ that have the knowledge that it's important to avoid women who don't want solutions. Listen, female believer, it's not worth it to have friendships nor any other form of social bonds with women that don't seek solutions. It's not worth it. Eventually, you will be scammed. You will be used eventually to secure their narcissistic supply. Just realize that worldly women in general are codependent on society. So, a worldly woman who also has daddy issues, that's an extra baggage. And even worldly women without Christ often want to put up with such females. Now, why do female believers put up with them? You shouldn't. Let me give a scenario. Let's say that, okay, I'm going to give an illustration. Your name is Sarah, and you have a niece called Amber. And Amber, she has daddy issues because her father was emotionally absent. And because of that, she was quite angry while growing up. Now, she's 17 now. So, she is old enough to realize that her family situation was dysfunctional and that she needs to be delivered from how that dysfunction affected her. But let's say now that instead of facing this, she's chasing after a boyfriend. Knowing that this guy is unstable, she prefers to be around him because at least she feels appreciated. She doesn't want to face her defects. She just wants to be relieved from them. So she's after this boyfriend. And this niece of yours, Amber, never calls you. She doesn't even bother with you at all. She doesn't even think about you. When you invite her to social media to visit some events, she tells she's not interested, or she just doesn't respond at all. When she turns 20, when a boyfriend kicked her out, she suddenly comes to you. She calls you often, saying how bad that boyfriend was, this and that. But what she doesn't tell you is that she cheated on the guy twice because she didn't get quote-unquote enough attention. So she became addicted to the sexual attention of men. But she doesn't want to deal with the consequences of her addiction. She doesn't even want to face she has an addiction. So now that the boyfriend kicked her out, the boyfriend even intended to marry her soon, so she lost a man who wanted to change and be stable for her right over there. So she's accursed and she doesn't want to face it. But she keeps calling you to empty her heart. And she thanks you that you're always there for her. But does she go into therapy? Does she go into prayer? Does she look for help to be delivered? No. So what happens? When she turns 21, now there's another guy in the picture, and suddenly you don't hear anything from Amber anymore. And later you hear that Amber is complaining about Sarah and accusing her of all kinds of stuff. That Amber is saying to other people that her aunt keeps minding in her business, in her life. It's because of her aunt that her former boyfriend kicked her out. She's lying, saying all kinds of untruths out there. Why? Because it gives her attention from others. She doesn't care how the lies affect her aunt, how it affects others, not even how it will affect herself in the long run. She just wants to be validated at all costs. Let's say now that Sarah discusses the situation with her husband and they break all contact with Amber. And let's say after a while people see through the BS of Amber and people stop hanging out with her. Now she's socially isolated. And because she's socially isolated, she now has to face her defects and she begins to decompose mentally. So now she is becoming suicidal and it's directed outwards. Now she becomes a menace. And she had to be arrested multiple times for disturbing public order. What happens now is that the community wants to be relieved from having to deal with this mentally deranged woman. So what will the community do? The community will look for a scapegoat to blame for her condition. They can't blame the father because the father is nowhere around. And blame the father would also imply that they need to be honorable themselves, and they're often not. So when they see a decent guy who has a job, who's quite empathic, they would agree to match this decent guy with this Amber. And they would trick this man into marrying her. Especially if this man has a background in church, he will likely do it. Or better said, they will sponsor those Babylon churches to pick up such mentally deranged women, and through those churches, they would pair those women with men that attend those churches. And what happens now is that now that Amber is in a wedlock, she hasn't changed, she only has gotten worse. When she eventually escalates, they will now blame it all on the husband. So now the community is relieved. Now they have the husband as a scapegoat. So what happened here? You had someone with daddy issues that became narcissistic because she didn't want to face herself. She didn't want to look for solutions. She escalated. The community allowed her to escalate. So now the community wants to get rid of her. So now they're looking for someone to transfer the danger onto. And that is what the world does. That's what a wedlock is designed for. Now look, someone can be toxic for a moment and then realize, well, hold on a minute, why am I so toxic? I need deliverance. That happens. But while they are toxic, you need to be safe. This doesn't only count for women with daddy issues, okay? But I'm focusing on this group now because society has conditioned the masses to feel sorry and to have everlasting patience with women who have daddy issues. And I'm telling you, believers, especially the female believers, don't fall for it. Whether you're a male or female, such creatures who don't seek solutions, they'll turn into pathological liars. They'll turn into scammers. And they don't even consider how they're affecting you. How it affects you doesn't concern them, at least to them. They can be, quote unquote, happily married and suddenly they leave their families behind. Mother disappears. Children are confused. The husband is thinking what's going on, and she is somewhere at the motel with some guy from the streets. And then her husband begins to complain, think, how can you do this to us, to your family, to your children? And she says something like, I don't want to be bothered. She begins to blame everything on him. And then you will have people that say, well, she has daddy issues. People begin to sympathize with her instead of sympathizing with her children who are now victimized by the mother who doesn't want solutions. Or they begin to blame the husband if it's all the fault of the husband. It's all something the world does. Also in many churches this happens. So believers, whether you're a male or female believer, just avoid women that refuse healing. Women that refuse to seek deliverance, that don't even want to acknowledge that they need to process things, just avoid them. Let me say this, you can't always just block someone like you do on social media, but make sure you lose them. If you need to come up with some fake story just to be freed from them, do it. Just do it. Don't get into any business association with them. Don't get into any social bonds with them. Don't get into any legal agreements that involves them. Just don't be involved with them. They're not little girls anymore. They're not little children anymore. They're not even in their early teens anymore. They need to process things and contribute to safety and justice in the community. If they're not doing that, that means they're contributing to evil and harm in the community. If a man had a rough childhood and he refused to face things and he becomes dangerous to the community, we wouldn't excuse him. Even if it's obvious that he can't help how dysfunctional he became, in the world, you will be blamed anyway because you're a man. But for some reason, when females are defective and dangerous to the community, there's always an excuse, there's always a reason, no matter how much harm they cause. And many churches get along, or they go along with this agenda. Don't get along with this agenda, believers. Yes, we should have empathy and sympathy for people. We should have compassion on people. Pity is only when we feel bad for what's happening to them. But that feeling bad is not to look down on them. It's to motivate us to take compassionate actions on their behalf. So we should be there for other people. It's written to laugh with those that laugh and to cry with those who cry. But that's in the context of Christ. You're not supposed to be drawn into the self-destruction of someone else. Let's say you have a lifeguard. Let's say you're in Florida and you have a lifeguard on the beach. And there's someone drowning on the sea. The lifeguards receive instructions during their education. And there is a clause in their education in which they were taught, if someone refuses to comply with the rescue, let them drown. You would say, this is quite harsh. You become a lifeguard because you want to save lives, right? That's true. But think about this. Your safety as a lifeguard is the primary importance because the individual that's drowning needs you to rescue them. If you, the rescuer, is in danger, then who's going to rescue the others who need help? So if you arrive with your boat to get the individual out of the water, an individual, instead of following your instructions, holding your hands, and working with you so that they are rescued, if they don't do that, but they keep screaming, shouting, kicking you, and dragging you in the water, then remove yourself from the grave of that individual, allow them to drown, and then you bring their corpse to the shores and they'll be buried later on. Because your safety as a lifeguard is important. Even firemen have a clause in which they need to leave certain people behind if they become dangerous to the firemen. Every building that's constructed by law needs to have fire exits. So when a building is on fire and the firefighters come, they have manuals with instructions that they need to follow to get everyone out of there. However, the ones in danger need to face the danger and comply with the solution. So they need to comply with the rescue mission, or else they'll be left behind to perish. That's how it goes with the firefighters. So if even the world institutions which are run by pagans have such security measures to preserve and keep the lives safe of their rescue workers, then why is it that believers think that we need to put ourselves in danger all the time, allowing ourselves to be run over, abused, mistreated by reprobates who have no intention of seeking deliverance and contributing to safety, healing, and justice? When people refuse to comply with justice, they shouldn't receive any amnesty. No amnesty for those that refuse to comply with justice. That's how it ought to be. So, I don't care if it's your daughter or your mother, or maybe even your spouse, or I don't care who the female is. If she refuses to seek healing and recovery from her daddy issues or whatever issues she has become a menace and should be treated as such. Access to your affairs, access to your finances, your children, should be denied to her. The community must take actions to keep her destruction in a limit. That's how it used to be. Though to feminist propaganda, you can't even suggest such things anymore, because people will call you a women hater or misogynist or whatever. I'm saying it as it is. As believers, we ought to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. We ought to be advanced in a walk by faith. Yes, we should be a safe haven, a safe place for those that need help. But especially people that want help, people that are realistic and realize that they need deliverance. We should be safe places for such people. We should not be a carnival attraction for reprobates to dump their trash and to live at ease, and we are left with the danger. That's not how it ought to be. Pagan Christianity teaches you otherwise. They misuse what Christ said. For example, turning the other cheek. What Christ really meant with that is to use understanding to get out of situation unharmed without having to harm the other individual. Christ didn't teach self-defense. Christ taught you to examine the situation and to remove yourself from danger, or to take constructive action in line with Him to overcome a dangerous situation. That's what Christ taught. But pagan Christianity will never tell you this. Pagan Christianity wants believers to be the trash cans, the dump sites of reprobates. That's what pagan Christianity wants. They don't want us believers to walk by faith, to operate in sound judgment, because when we do this, we'll be a threat to the relief seeking of the world. So they want believers to shut up, suck it all up, and tolerate all abuse and mistreatment just as society is left alone. That's not God's will. Yes, we should pray for others. We should be compassionate for others. Absolutely. We shouldn't have this leave me alone attitude like the world has. However, we should be wise also. When someone has turned into a wolf, when someone has become a wolf in sheep's clothing, meaning they're using past trauma or past quote-unquote difficulties as an excuse to exploit and assault people in the present, we should not retaliate. We shouldn't repay evil with evil, but we must disassociate ourselves from such an individual. We should avoid them. We should restrain them. We should take actions against their self-destructive influence. That's how we exercise righteous judgment. And there's a lack of righteous judgment amongst believers. Look, if you take offense at this message, that's on you. I'm saying as it is, there needs to be sound judgment amongst believers. So, do not deal nor put up with reprobate women. Just don't agree with Christ.